We've got a simple band recording that we're going to process to give it a vintage old school sound. In fact, we're specifically aiming for a 60s sound along the lines of Rolling Stones' Satisfaction, which we'll use as a reference track. If that's a bit too old school for you, you can apply the same principles in more moderate amounts to get closer to more recent years. We'll demonstrate these principles using CM plugins and standard effects you'll find in practically any DAW. To get started, put the stems on separate tracks in your DAW. We're using Cubase. Cubase has automatically named the tracks to correspond to the audio, but if your DAW hasn't done that, name the tracks now to save confusion. We've also coloured the tracks. Most of the audio files are mono already, and Cubase is smart enough to place these on mono tracks. However, some are stereo, organ and tambourine, which isn't typical of the 60s era, so we'll have to do something about that later on. The mix here we've got is very simple, with one mono track for each tambourine, kick drum, snare drum, drum kit, i.e. a single mic capturing the room, bass, guitar and organ. Our first protocol is to shape the sounds using EQ, and for this we'll use our very own EQ Pro CM. Add it to the kick drum track, and then click on the graph to add two nodes. We're going to mimic the overlapping bass shelves of Pultec's classic valve-based passive analog EQ, the EQ-P1A. Using a graphical EQ like the EQ Pro will make it easier to understand the thinking behind the dual shelves approach. Not only that, but the EQ Pro has a passive mode, which is uncommon in digital EQs. The idea is to cut with one shelf and boost with another, but set them to slightly different frequencies. Change both nodes from ana peak to low shelf by right-clicking them and using the pop-up menu. Click the series label to toggle the plugin into passive mode. Set the first shelf to 200 Hz, 0.5Q with a boost of 7 dB, and the second to 400 Hz, 1.2Q with a cut of 7 dB. Now we've got a bass lift with a tight cut above the boosted area, which helps to prevent a build-up of mid-range mud while still giving a warm low end. On the snare channel, we use the same dual shelf setup. We copy the plugin over, then tweak the settings. Here we set the lower shelf to 200 Hz with a 4 dB boost and 1.3Q, and the higher to 1200 Hz with a 2 dB cut and a 0.5Q. This setup has the effect of pushing the 200 Hz range, which is where the body of the snare sits. While we're at it, we stick an EQ Pro on the way too bright tambourine channel and use an LPF12 filter at 5000 Hz to low pass filter the high end away. Copy the Pultec style EQ to the bass channel. This time, set the shelves to 100 Hz, 5 dB, 1Q, and 250 Hz, minus 7.4 dB, 0.5Q. The guitar track sounds good, but it's too forward and harsh around the 2 kHz range, so we use a minus 6 dB and a peak filter with a Q of 0.8 to rein in this aggression. It still sounds too bright and glassy, so we apply a LPF12 filter at 11.5 kHz with a Q of 0.3 for a gentle roll-off. We leave the organ uneq'd as it doesn't really need it. To further focus the sounds, we drop Sonoma Sats and CM from the CM plugins onto every channel, then adjust the plugin's high pass and low pass knobs to roll away yet more treble harshness and bass build-up. We aim to push each instrument into a similar range as that of our reference track. On some of the channels we want to push Sats and CM harder to introduce more harmonic saturation. So on the snare, kit, bass and guitar tracks we ram Sats and CM's drive knob all the way up to maximum 18 dB gain. To compensate, we turn each of these channels down by about 18 dB using their channel faders. Saturation has the useful side effect of stabilising dynamics. Use it wisely and you may find yourself having to use less compression or perhaps even none at all.